We're continuing with this new study on the covenants of God that He has made with mankind and with Israel. Now, this is lesson 2 of our study, and we're examining today the Noahic Covenant in the Bible. Let's begin by looking at the time of conscience. See, the Noahic Covenant is the covenant God made with Noah after the flood, involving all the creatures and all the future generations of mankind. It confirms and adds to God's purpose as stated in the Adamic Covenant. And under the Adamic Covenant, man was put on probation to test his faith and obedience to the covenant. The importance of man's obedience to God and the necessity of conquering Satan, the place of diligence in work, and the trust in the substitutionary death of an animal for their faith covering were emphasized in the Adamic Covenant. But this put a requirement on man to live up to those realities. It was once again a period of probation extending from Adam to Noah. Now, during this time, the human race became divided into two groups, those who believed and obeyed God and those who refused. And beginning with Cain and Abel, two seed lines developed until the days of Noah. One was the ungodly in Genesis 4, and the other was the godly found in Genesis 5. Now, although man was under the law of conscience, the law of sin continued to drive him away from a covenant relationship with God. And Cain's rejection of the covenant sacrifice and murder of his covenant brother Abel eventually led to the corruption of the entire human race, with one exception, Noah. Now, we see in Genesis 6:8 that Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Now, I'd like you to do, at the back of the handout that I gave, is a chart of descendants. And it will give you, I gave you a couple of charts. And if you'll observe the charts of the descendants from Adam to Noah and his sons, you'll find out the time frame that this took place. Now, this should give you an idea of the timeline between them. And men lived longer before the flood, so it's believed that the earth at that time was covered by a canopy of water high above the atmosphere. And this canopy caused a greenhouse effect on the earth, and things grew larger, and life was sustained longer without the additional harmful rays of the sun, so they lived longer. And the earth is believed at that time to have been a Pangea, which means that all the continents were connected at that time. And it wasn't sometime until after the flood that the earth was physically divided. Now, some believe that it broke apart during the flood, but I believe that it happened after the flood at the time of Peleg. And when I teach on that particular subject, I'll give more details. But it's believed that man, animals, and dinosaurs, believe it or not, which are just large animals, all lived at the same time here on the earth. The scientific community, most secular and some Christian scientists, for many years believed that dinosaurs and humans never coexisted. I totally disagree. The opinion of some have changed when fossilized footprints of dinosaurs and humans were found together. And this recent fossil discovery shows a human footprint slightly overlapped by a dinosaur footprint. And newly discovered artwork and various other ancient artifacts depicting live dinosaurs by themselves or interacting with humans have given further proof. Now, many try to cover this up because it doesn't fit within their theories. Some believe that there was another time that the dinosaurs lived, but no, they lived at the same time. See, now what happened? Great wickedness of mankind took place. As time progressed, the wickedness of mankind grew greatly upon the earth. And it says in Genesis 6:6-7, and that the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. So from Adam to Noah, the descendants of Cain and of Seth began to intermarry. Now, others have added that Genesis 6:4 gives reason to believe that angels of God marry the daughters of men. Because of this union, unnatural men of great height and strength began to arise out of these unions. But this is a topic that's greatly debated, and there's no proof in the Bible that plainly states that this happened. And so it doesn't seem plausible that angels had relations with women. It says in Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Now, out of these people sprang up a race that was distinguished for their ungodliness. And the Nephilim, these mysterious beings, are people in the Hebrew Bible who are described as being large and strong. Well, the Hebrew word Nephilim is sometimes translated as giants. Now, I believe giants came from other giants, but sometimes as its literal meaning means the fallen ones. But some scholars have argued that the fallen mighty men in Ezekiel 32:27 is an indirect reference to the Nephilim. We know that there was giants after, and the origins of Nephilim are debated by scholars, but most days, think about this, of Noah were characterized by intermarriage and great wickedness and evil imaginations and desires and corruption and violence. Now remember, everyone that survived after the flood came from Noah and his children and their wives. And we know that because the Bible says that. So therefore, this is not some angels coming down. It is where men they just got large. They were giants. See, men became more and more corrupt until God determined to sweep the earth of this wicked population. And this total failure to keep the covenant demanded God's in judgment. It demanded it. Now, I don't want you to get concerned that I think that angels and women did something together. I am very open-minded, but I don't believe in that because I don't see it in the Bible. I stay with what the Bible says. If the Bible says that God created all beings, all the animals, and then man and woman, and they had children, that means that God created dinosaurs and they lived at the same time. That means that the dinosaurs were on the ark as well. Now, they probably weren't the big ones, they were the small ones. That's why I think it's important, really, I'm going to get into a study on creation, and I'm also going to talk about Noah's Ark in the near future. And I'll give you a lot more details on that, and it lines up with the Bible. It's not some weird fanciful teachings or something that's off the wall. I don't do that. I stay with what the Bible says. Now see here, Noah finds favor with God. We see in Genesis 6:8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, it says. Noah, his name, it means rest in Hebrew. And so, therefore, we find Noah was the grandson of Methuselah, one of the longest living guys, see? And this patriarch is rightly regarded as the connecting link between the old and the new world, prior to the flood, after the flood. He's the second greatest progenitor of the human family. Everyone came through Noah and his children and his sons and their wives. But see Genesis 5:25-29 to find out more about that. But see, Noah lived 500 years and then he had 3 sons. That's a long time before you have kids. They had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. See that in Genesis 5:32. And the Bible says he was a just man and perfect in his generation. And he walked with God. We see that in Genesis 6:9. And you can compare that with Ezekiel 14, and 20. Now see, God chose Noah because he was a just and perfect man in his generation. The rest of the generation around him was not. But this is not to say that Noah was without his faults. He had issues, I'm just like everyone else. Noah was like David, a man said to be after God's own heart. Noah had this testimony that he walked with God. And God entered into a covenant with Noah, and the covenant gave him a promise of deliverance from the great flood that was to come upon the face of the whole earth because of man's wickedness. Now God gives a command to build an ark. God commanded Noah to build an ark for the saving of himself and his household. The ark was to be made of gopher wood. It's not certain what kind of wood this is, or what it was, but most likely it was cypress or acacia wood, many people believe. Genesis 6:14-16 says, "Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch." This is how you're to make it, it says. The length of the ark is 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark, and finish it a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. Now, I find it interesting. The scholars believe the roof was made to open up like a skylight when it needed to be. So now when you look at the construction of the ark, God gave Noah the exact blueprints for instructing the ark that he was to get ready for himself and all the animals and everyone to be in when it rained, because it hadn't rained yet. Now see, the form of measurement used in Noah's day was the ancient cubit. Cubit in Hebrew is amma, means mother of the arm, the forearm. And the English word is derived from the Latin cubit, it refers to the lower arm. And it's difficult to determine the exact length of the measure from the uncertainty whether it included the entire length from the elbow to the tip of the longest finger or from the elbow to the root of the hand at the wrist. Now the probability is that the longer was the original cubit. The common computation as to the length of the cubit makes it 17½ inches, or 18 inches, or 19 inches, or 20¼ inches for the ordinary cubit, and 21.888 inches for the sacred one. Now this is the same as the Egyptian measurements. Now some scholars use the Egyptian cubit of 21.888 inches, and the ark was to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Now although the ark's cubit length is uncertain, it might have been one of the royal cubits, about 19.8 to 20.6 inches, since it was a large-scale project. So the ark was actually bigger than the size described in most books today, which frequently use the short cubit, which is around 17 to 18 inches. Now see, I use the same one that is found in the building of the Ark Encounter exhibit in northern Kentucky, which is 20.4 inches. This is based on a 17.5-inch normal cubit made into a royal cubit by adding the handbreadth of 2.9 inches, and this was done in the past as well. This makes the life-size Noah's Ark about 510 feet long, that's about 1.5 football fields, and over 50 feet tall, which is about as tall as a 4-story house, and close to 85 feet wide. Now the ark, it was designed to be able to cut through water and handle the waves of the flood. And it was a pretty big project for a guy who had never built a boat before, let alone seen one before. Now it's not clear really just how long it took Noah and his sons to build the ark. Now remember, I'm going to teach more about the ark, but I want to give you some clues here for what's happening with this covenant. See, it appears in Genesis 6:3 to be 120 years. But if you consider the time according to the genealogies, it can be as little as 30 years to build. And if it was 120 years, that is about 4.5 feet per year, or 18 1/3 feet per year if it was 30 years. But during the building of the ark, Noah bore constant testimony against the unbelief and the wickedness of his generation. We can see that in 1 Peter 3:18 through 20, 2 Peter 2:5. But see, the grace of God was available to all, but only Noah and his family took advantage of it. When the ark was finally completed, according to the command of the Lord, it's interesting, the living creatures that were to be preserved entered into it. They came. He didn't have to go gather them. God brought them. And there were 7 of the clean and 2 of the unclean. So then Noah and his wife, his sons, and their wives entered the ark. Did you get that, what I said there? 2 of the regular kind, or the unclean, a pair, but the other were 7 pairs of the clean ones. And it says in Genesis 7:16, and those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. So God brought them together, then he shuts the door. Then what happens? The flood. The judgment fell on the guilty world. It began to rain 40 days and 40 nights. And I'm sure you've heard this numerous times, but I want you to understand something. The flood continued growing for 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. Now, a lot of people that believe in the canopy theory, that canopy I told you earlier, it broke and it poured out water like crazy. And the waters, what happened, they prevailed and increased quickly, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the highest mountains in the world, were under the whole heaven, were covered by water. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them, up to 15 cubits deep above the mountains, the highest ones, which is about 25 to 27 feet above the highest mountain. That's a big flood. The waters came from underneath, up from the seas and everywhere else, and also from above. So in Genesis 7:21 through 23, it says that all flesh died and moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swam on the earth, and all of mankind. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left and those who were with him in the ark. See, that shows us that life on the ground was completely blotted out from the earth, completely wiped out. All the people, the birds, the animals, the insects, the bugs, the snakes, I hate snakes, everything on the earth died. Only Noah and those with him in the ark lived. I mean, seriously, that's what it says happened. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. And the ark floated on the waters for 150 days. Then finally rested on the mountains of Ararat. Ararat's located, we say it in modern day Turkey. Now they were in the ark for about 1 year. Noah entered the ark at the age of 600 and exited the ark when he was 601 years old. And so he was 600 when he went in, 601 when he came out. Now remember what I said about Turkey. Some people believe it was somewhere else, but I'm just saying that's where it is today, modern Turkey. Remember, it doesn't say anything about the creatures in the oceans, though. See, I always want to throw in more details. One of the things, as I said, about Ararat is that there is a Mount Ararat in Turkey, and they believe that's where it actually landed. But I'm not going to debate about that right now because we want to talk about where we're going. So I'm sure, see, you think about this, that some of the sea creatures, and I said the sea creatures were still around, I'm sure a lot of them perished due to the shifting land masses, the mud, the silt, and laying down. Plus the fossils that have been found buried confirm this. And there was even some seashells and other various things found in the mountains in Colorado. So the fossils found buried that were buried confirmed that this was a worldwide catastrophe. But see, many sea creatures survived. So not all of them died, but everything that was on land, it perished. Now here's the thing. The time of human government, perpetual covenants, this is what God put in place after the flood. I would love to spend time going over all the things about the flood, which we will do in future lessons when I concentrate on the flood. But for now, we're going to keep going here. And what happened after the flood, you can see in Genesis 8:1. It says, "But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him on the ark," okay? And God made a wind blow. I think this is so cool. God made a wind blow over the earth and the waters subsided. So after God had worked face to face with the first humans, Adam and Eve, and you think about that's the dispensation of innocence in Genesis 1:28 through 3:19. They sinned and all mankind became a fallen race living on a cursed planet. Now conditions changed and all subsequent families on the earth were to do good based on what they knew to be right. And that's the dispensation of conscience. We see that in Genesis 3:23 through 8:19. Mankind again failed to fulfill their responsibility, so God brought a worldwide flood to wipe out all but 8 people. So in the next dispensation, God works in a new way with his creation via what's called human government. After the flood, God stepped back from directly judging the earth until the second coming, which will happen at the end of the tribulation period. Thus, a human agency known as civil government was divinely appointed to restrain evil and protect man from his own sinful nature. And Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives began to repopulate the earth. In this way, God established the orderly rule of mankind for the good of society. And I wanted to mention this here, But we'll talk more about this later on in some other teachings so that you'll also be able to understand more about what's happening here. But see, the altar of sacrifice and praise took place next. On leaving the ark, Noah's first act of gratitude was to build an altar before God so he could offer up sacrifices and thanks and praises who had entered into a covenant with him. And looking back in the time of Adam, the presenting of an offering unto God is first witnessed with Cain and Abel. Cain was a tiller of the ground, a farmer, and Abel was a keeper of sheep. He was a rancher. In Genesis 4, verses 3 through 5 says, "In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell." Well, why did God receive Abel's offering but not Cain's offering? Well, in the narrative of Cain and Abel, we find that God once again reveals the necessity to shed blood in order to make an atonement for man's sins. And if you notice, God did not accept Adam's covering of fig leaves and Cain's offering of fruit because both came from the ground that was cursed for man's sake. Noah, he built an altar and prepared an offering unto the Lord. This was part of the reason they took 7 pairs of clean animals with them on the ark. They were to be used for sacrifice, was one of those reasons. Another was for food, and another was to domesticate or to raise and to populate the earth with. So Noah's obedience of a sacrificial offering greatly pleased the Lord. And after the sacrifices, God made a covenant with Noah. So we see that God makes a covenant with Noah, and that's the Noahic Covenant. It gave guidance for man's conscience by establishing laws of conduct. These new laws of conduct would be the beginning of human government. Man was to repopulate the earth and rebuild that which was destroyed. And God declared that the fear of man would be in the heart of every animal. If a man was to shed the blood of another without cause, that means that the man's blood would be required. God promised that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood. And as a token of his promise, God placed his bow, which is the rainbow, in the cloud as a remembrance of his covenant. You can see that in Genesis 8:21, also Genesis 9:12, and 13. Now see, God blessed Noah and his sons. The Noahic covenant is unconditional. God does not place any conditions on this covenant to be fulfilled. God says, "I will do it." And this covenant was made by God with Noah and his sons after the flood. So let's look at what the scriptures say about it in Genesis 8:20 through 22 and 9:1 through 17. I want to read these passages. Genesis 8:20 through 22 says, "Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took some of every clean animal, and some of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever strike down every living creature as I've done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." Then it goes on in Genesis 9:1 through 17. "And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, and as I give you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh, which is life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of a man. Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man shall his blood be shed. And God made man in his own image. And you, being fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth, and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you. and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark, it is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature, that is, with you and for all future generations. He says, I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So you see, in this covenant, God did some amazing things. I love a rainbow. I love the beauty of it. And here, he blesses Noah and his sons in Genesis 9:1. He places all plants and animals under human command, the establishment of human government with the power of capital punishment. It shows that in Genesis 9:2 and 3. He forbids eating meat with the blood still in it in Genesis 9:4. He forbids murder in Genesis 9:5. He commands humankind to practice capital punishment for murderers in Genesis 9:6. He promises that he will never again destroy all life on the earth by the flood in Genesis 9:11. And he creates the rainbow as the pledge of this covenant for all ages to come in Genesis 9:12 through 17. And see, he guaranteed the regularity of time periods and seasons and redirected man to repopulate the earth. That's a lot. God promised a lot in the Noahic Covenant. So when we look at this, the conclusion of it, the covenant is a reaffirmation. The Noahic Covenant contains an reaffirmation of the creative purposes of God as stated in the Edenic and the Adamic Covenant. It's also an extension of the seed promises of redemption as in the Adamic Covenant. So though it arises out of a time of great judgment, it establishes hope, a hope that God's purposes in creation will be fulfilled through redemption. And the hope of the Noahic Covenant, it finds its complete fulfillment in the new covenant, which is Jesus who laid down his blood as the ultimate sacrifice for the salvation of our souls. So the next covenant that we're going to look at in this series is the Abrahamic Covenant, and we're going to do that one next week. But I wanted to go through these covenants so we understand how God has promised that he's going to do certain things and that he is going to keep his word because he does. And these covenants right now, this is one that he says he'll always do. So when you see a rainbow, I always think of God because it's his promise to not destroy the earth like he did then and the things that he laid out until his son comes again. I like the covenants, so I hope that you join me again next week for more of this teaching. And if you want to find out more about Centerpoints Christian Fellowship, just send me an email at info@centerpoints.org, and I can send you information on our newsletter that we have on Sunday mornings that talks about our services, shows our praise and worship songs that we do, so you can fellowship if you would like. Also, there's information that we can give you on the Wednesday night Bible study and the Thursday morning Bible study for women. And if you'd like to be a part of that, just let me know. I can send you a link. And you just send it to, again, info@centerpoints.org. If you'd like to see more of the videos that we've put online, we've been doing that for several years now. They're all on YouTube. And you can just go to www.youtube.com/CPC, the @ symbol, CPCF/video. You can also find that in the link that goes with this on Facebook and YouTube and on our website. So I'd love for you to follow up with us on any other videos you'd like. If you have any questions, you need some prayer requests for us to pray about, all these different things, we'd love to help you with that. So until I see you again, stay safe And may God bless you. And have a great day.